Okay, welcome. This is going to be the first lesson. I'm gonna break it down in parts for you, so you could absorb it much easier. We found that if we try to do the whole chapter, then it's hard for people to remember it. So when they go take the test, they get brain, what they call that, brain fog, and they forget. So you remember it. So this one is we started. We want to start this one off with driving safety. So that seems to be the problem with in the trucking industry right now. People not being safe out down the road. So this is this should be should be very interesting here. So let's go to the first slide. All right. So this is pretty much talking about your pre-trips before you even start driving. You want to make sure you pre-trip your vehicles. Um, why inspect your vehicle? Safety is the most important reason for completing a vehicle inspection. Two, a defect found during an inspection could prevent problems later, such as breakdowns, time and dollars, and a crash. So that's something that we want to avoid while we are down the road. So this is coming straight out of the CDL book. Um, like I said, we're gonna do it in sections and try to get everybody as comfortable as remembering once they go take the CDL test, so they won't have a problem with recalling this information. The third one is federal and state law requires that drivers inspect their vehicles. So that's the law. So you got to check it regardless. Um, if you don't do your inspection, it will they will find problems with your vehicle. For federal and state inspectors also may inspect your vehicles. If they judge the vehicle be unsafe, they will put you out of service until it is repaired. Now, this comes more with like brake problems, pretty much air leaks. That'd be like the major problems. Some tires, it's kind of hard to judge on the tires if it's safe, if it's unsafe. Um, so it's best that you use your best judgment when it comes to the tires. You don't want to be on the side of the road. Um, Brakes out of adjustment, air leaks. Um, they they put you out of service like instantly for that. Not only that, that goes on your PSP and it counts as points. You get too many points, you could, have your license suspended or even taken away from you. You don't want to, you know, have brake failure because that could, cause a crash. It could cost somebody their life. So you really want to check your brakes. If you don't check nothing else, you want to check them brakes. So let's go to the next slide. So this is um, type of vehicle inspections. So like while you doing your trip, you want to watch the gauges for signs of troubles. Um, the gauges start going up and down, giving you like false sense. Like it just, you want to just watch your gauges, your cooling levels, your oil pressure, um, air pressure. So you want to keep an eye on that and use senses to check for problems. You want to look, listen, smell, feel. Sometimes you could feel for the air leak. If it's you get up under the truck or the trailer, you can actually put your hand where you hear the air leaking out there, and you can actually feel the air, pulsating out of there. Check critical items when stopping. So, like when you stop and get fuel, stop to do a pickup, delivery. Anytime you stop, you want to check your tires, your wheels, and rims. Make sure that, the thread good on them. You don't have no cracks on your rims. The the lug nuts not loose on your rims. So you want to check your brakes. Like I said, brakes is like one of the it's a big problem with brakes. So you want to check that. Um, your reflectors, you want to make sure people are able to see you. So brakes and electrical connections to trailer. You know, like step in between the trailer, check it out. Make sure you don't see no cuts in the electrical cords that's disposing, wire. You don't hear no air leaks. You want to, pretty much like look at, see if you can find any problems because for one thing, DOT will find the problems if you miss it. So that's their job to make sure that the truck is running safe. Um, Trailer coupling device. So you want to make sure that kingpin lock around that fifth wheel. So you want it, what I do is I get up under the trailer with my flashlight and I shine a light in there to make sure I don't see nothing shiny. Make sure it's all the way around that kingpin. Cargo securement devices. So cargo securement devices, you know, um, it could go for the vans, but it's most likely like for flatbeds. You want to make sure all your chains, straps in good conditions, ratchet binders. Um, so it's just making sure your load is secured. So now, after you do your inspection, now you have to fill out um, a report. So you go report it to the company and let them know, hey, I found this on a trailer. I found this on a truck. Just want to let them know that if you find any problems so they can get it fixed as soon as possible, especially if it's going to cause an out of service violation. That's like out of service violation is so detrimental to stay away from. Like you want to avoid that at all costs. You don't want to get an out of service violation. Um, okay, so conduct an after trip inspection at the end of the trip, day, or tour of duty on each vehicle operated. So if you drop a trailer, pick up another trailer, you want to check that out, make sure it's road ready. Make sure to report any problems with the vehicle to the motor carrier by filling out a vehicle condition report listing any problems found. So, like I said, it's called a DVIR. So it's just driver vehicle inspection report. You find any problems, lights out, um, bad tires, air compressor. It's just you just letting the company know what you find so they could get it fixed. Now, these are some things what to look for. You know, it's it's you got to list it step by step with tire problems. Some of the things that you can find dealing with the tires. So too much or too little air pressure. So you want to get your tire gauge out, check the air pressure. Make sure it's giving you at least 100 psi's. You know, some people do 105, some people do 110, but you want to at least have like 100 psi's in there. That'll help prevent, the tire from blowing out, you know, causing any bad wear. So 4/32 inch thread depth is required on every major groove on the front tires. So you want to check that. Sometimes you get like these little wavy um, grooves on the tires. that tire need to be changed. They said through it's every major groove. So you want to go through each groove and make sure you got the right, you know, full 30 seconds on it. And, 2 30 seconds on every tire after that. So that goes for your drives and trailer tires. So you don't want no fabric showing, no cuts on the sidewall. So when you walk up to a tire, you don't want to see no cuts on the side of it. You don't want no fabric showing. Okay, so your thread depth then went too low. Now it's showing fabric. So you don't want that. I went over cuts or other damages, thread separation. You don't want that. Dual tires that come in contact with other parts of the vehicle or each other. So you want to make sure your tires not rubbing against your trailer. Sometimes these airbags go out on these trailers, and as you ride down the road, it just bounce and hitting the tires. So you want to make sure that it's not the airbag's good on it, the shock's good on it, the your whole suspension is good on it to keep that trailer raised up high enough so it won't rub against the tires. You want to look for mismatched sizes. So you got to look at both tires. If you got dual tires, you want to make sure that they matching. You know, you want to make sure that it's radius bi-ply tires. It got to be one or the other. It can't be mixture. It can't be a radius and a bi-ply. You can't use those together. Cuts crack valve stems. So that you should like that should be a audible sound that you hear. That way you can instantly find that problem. If your stem, your valve stem leaking air, like you should hear that as soon as you walk up to the truck or the trailer. So make sure you check that. Regrooved, recap, or rethread tires on the front wheels of buses are prohibited. Now, those are also prohibited on the front of tractors. You can't have no recap tires on your stirs. Like that's like they'll shut you down for that. Wheels and rim problems. So, okay, so now you want to make sure your rim's not damaged, bent. That comes from drivers hitting the curves, hitting potholes. So it could damage the rim. So you want to check also rust around the wheel and lug nuts. This means the nuts are loose. Check tightness. Check tires after it has been changed. Stop a short while later and recheck tightness of nuts. So when you get your tires changed, you want to stop and make sure that the nuts are still tight on them. You don't want to just keep driving down the road and that vibration, start knocking that lug lug nut loose. So missing clamps, spacers, studs, or lug nuts means dangerous. Notice I put that in bold and underlined it because that is dangerous. So you don't need to be missing none of these essential parts. All right. So mismatch, bent, or cracked lock rings are dangerous. All right. Wheels or rims that have been welded, repairs are not safe. So you see somebody that then welded. Let's say sometimes you see somebody welded the lug nut to the rim. Like that's not safe. That's a no. So avoid that as much as possible. Um, Bad brake drums or shoes. You want to check your brakes and you want to check your brake drums. All right, you want to make sure your drums is not cracked. You want to check your brake shoes or pads. Make sure it don't have no oil, grease, or brake fluid on them. Shoes worn less than a quarter inch, missing or broken, has to be changed. It can't be less than a quarter inch thick. So now we're dealing with the steering system defects. All right, so you want to check, make sure there's not no missing nuts, bolts, cotter pins, or other parts. If you look at the diagram, it's showing you all the components of the steering system. You want to make sure nothing missing on that, bent, um, no bolts missing, the cotter pins are still in place. You want to make sure none of it is bent, loose, mainly such as the steering column, the steering gearbox, or tie rod. Those are, some three main points that you want to look at when you're checking the steering system. If power steering equipped, check hoses, pumps, and fluid levels. Check for leaks. So these are the three things that you checking for leaks for. So you checking the steering column, steering gearbox, a tie rod for bent, loose, or broken parts, and you checking the hoses, pumps, and fluid levels for leaks. All right. So the steering wheel play of more than 10 degrees, approximately 2 inches movement at the rim of a 20-inch steering wheel can make it hard to steer. So while you sit in the truck and you turn that steering wheel, if it go more than 10 degrees, on a 20-inch steering wheel, which is pretty much factory. Some people, change the steering wheel and add their own the spin on it, but it's the 20-inch steering wheel is pretty much factory. Um, make you know make sure it don't have 2 inches movement at the rim. So you get out the truck and you stand on the step of the truck and you turn the steering wheel to make sure it don't have more than 2 inch movement. So you know okay. So now continuing the suspension system defects, you want to check your spring hangers that allow movement of the axles from proper position. So I got the diagram. It's figure 2-2. It, I had the diagram on the next slide. So you want to check, make sure that you check your spring hangers. You want to check for crack or broken spring hangers. So if I go to the next slide, okay, you can actually see like the spring hangers on the diagram. You want to check those. So the one at the top is for the key suspension parts, and the diagram at the bottom is the air suspension parts. Let's go back. All right. You're going to check for crack or broken spring hangers. You're going to check for missing or broken leaves in any leaf spring. If 1/4 or more is missing, it will put the vehicle out of service. Notice I got it as bold. But any defects could be dangerous. So that's what I'm saying. Any mechanical parts that will cause a problem down the road, they will put you out of service for, and that's an out of service item. So leaf springs, I don't know if you guys familiar with leaf springs, but leaf springs it deals with keeping the vehicle you know lifted. So that's what the leaf springs are for. It helps with it won't put too much weight on the shocks, absorbers, and airbags. So those are, the three components that help with the air ride. Broken leaves in a multi-leaf spring are leaves that have shifted, so they might hit a tire or other parts. So you gotta check those leaf springs. Make sure it's not broken, it haven't shifted, it's not, because it could hit a tire and blow the tire out. Leaking shock absorbers. You want to make sure no oil is coming down the shock absorber. So you want to actually rub and make sure it's not wet. U-boats, spring hangers, or other axle position parts that are cracked, damaged, or missing. You want to check that and make sure you don't have no crack, damage, or missing. Um, Tie rod or arm U-boats, which hold the leaf spring in place. You'll see that as you're looking at the leaf springs. So um, the next is the air suspension system that are damaged or leaking. Remember, I said the one at the second diagram that deals with the air suspension. Okay, the next one, check for hoses. You want to check the hoses. Make sure, and this is the diagram. It shows from front to back. And this is the leaf spring. Remember, I told you about the U-boats that goes around the leaf springs. And then right up under it, you got the bolts that screws into the leaf spring. I mean, U-boats. So study this diagram also. Okay, now we're dealing with the exhaust systems. So dealing with the exhaust, you're looking at a, a broken exhaust system can let pores and fumes into the cab or sleeper berth. So look for the following. You want to check for loose, broken, or missing exhaust pipes, mufflers, tailpipes, or vertical stacks. Check for loose, broken, or missing mounting brackets, clamps, bolts, or nuts. You want to check the exhaust system part rubbing against fuel system parts, tires, or other. The exhaust system parts are not leaking. Emergency equipment. All vehicles must be equipped with emergency equipment. Make sure your truck have these items. These are some of the things that DOT might ask you for. They might not ask you for all of them, but they're gonna ask you for, at least two of them. Fire extinguisher, they're gonna ask you for the fire extinguisher so they could check it, make sure it's the the gauge is still good. Make sure the fire extinguisher is still ready to be used. Um, Spare electrical fuses unless equipped with circuit breakers. You rarely see any trucks that have circuit breakers anymore. So you want to make sure you have fuses, even if they don't ask you for it. You want to make sure you have the fuses. Um, your lights might go out. It could blow. You want to change that fuse because if your fuse blow and you don't have no trailer lights, that is an out of service violation. Warning devices for parking vehicles. So you got make sure you have your triangles. Some people had the fuses the 3 liquid burning flares. So it just, for most part, everybody had the 3 reflected warning triangles. But make sure you have at least 2 of them. You want to have all 3, but make sure you have at least 2. The um the warning devices and a fire extinguisher, especially. Cargo trucks. So drivers make sure the truck is not overloaded and the cargo is balanced and secured before each trip. If the cargo contains hazardous material, you must inspect for proper papers and placards. So these are one of the things that you might get to a yard and they might want you to haul a hazmat load. You want to be able to read the paperwork. You want to know what you're looking for on the paperwork. You want to make sure the placards are exactly what it's supposed to be. But you don't want to pull it to the scale house and by then it's too late, because it should have been placard right. The paperwork should have been, up to par. Especially if you're doing hazmat load, you want to make sure you get a highlighter. So you can highlight the hazardous materials. You want to keep the hazardous material as close as possible. You can keep it on the door or the dash while you're driving down the road, but once you get out of the truck, you want to put it in the door. Don't leave it on the dash. State trooper pull up, he asks you for the paperwork, it's right there. If you got to climb in the truck to get it, it already don't look good for you. So that concludes this first lesson. Like I said, we're breaking it down in small parts for you so you can retain as much information as possible. But like I said, inspect your vehicles always. You don't want to get out there on the road and then have a breakdown or get into the scare house where it's too late and they start writing you, violations because that could cost you your job. Some drivers, have went to jail for certain problems that was wrong with their truck and they caused an accident. Somebody died. So you want to check your truck, make sure it's road ready, it's ready to drive. I want to thank everybody for attending this. More videos will be added to help, try to educate more and more drivers that's coming in. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys on the next section of driving safely. Um, like I said, y'all be safe out there and check your truck.